Hi, everyone. I want to just really document. This is just documenting the nanotechnology that they are absolutely using to control our weather. I'll start with this video, which was a while ago, though I can't find a date for it. 2009, this was posted 2009, nanotechnology for weather control. I don't know how old is the actual video from Science, but this document, which is the military document, Operational Defenses Through Weather Control in 2030, and I'll read some of this document in a little bit, but they do talk about nanotechnology, a weather machine to control the weather. Not only control it, create the weather. And this was back in 2009. And they said in this document it would take 10 years to 2019. Oh, so perhaps that's why I am now seeing a glittering atmosphere all the time. Nanoballoons. Nanoballoons. This is not natural, but now we seem to have these nanoballoons all over. And I have been, looking at this site at least once a day, and wow, it is quite a mess. Our atmosphere is loaded with nanoballoons. And I've said I definitely said in the last video that I posted, that we seem to have generation of cloud that comes in from the Pacific, goes through Mexico, on up through the United States. And this is on the 19th. On the 19th at approximately 4 p.m. But what you are seeing, these are not clouds. I hope you could get that just instinctually to know that no, our atmosphere did not glitter. Did not glitter. So we'll get into this a little bit in more detail. Okay, let's start right here. 2009 or before 2009.
Cloud seeding continues to be practiced in over 34 countries worldwide. But silver iodide and dry ice nuclei are Stone Age technologies compared to today's higher tech particle payloads. The most amazing of these belong to a family of weather mod devices that are so small you might not see one, even if it was floating in your eye. Ranging from the ultra-tiny to the nearly invisible, these are the revolutionary micro-machines that will be the workhorses of any world weather control system. They're MEMS, micro-electromechanical sensors.
There are approximately 2,000 weather balloons launched globally, worldwide, every day.
Those balloons play a huge role in helping us predict and potentially control our weather. But what if we could launch 10,000 weather balloons a day, or 10 million? That's exactly the theory behind GEMS.
GEMS are global environmental MEMS sensors, a concept that we have come up with that deals with a massive wireless network of airborne probes.
The idea is to release 10,000 or more of these dust-sized probes every day from airplanes, stratospheric platforms, or satellites. Like weather balloons, the probes would monitor weather information over every kilometer of the Earth's surface, at a resolution that is today unheard of.
We envisioned that the GEMS probe itself would have a bio-inspired design, something like a maple seed or a dandelion seed that actually incorporates the constructs of nature to achieve aerodynamics and buoyancy.
With an ongoing stream of millions of measurements, the accuracy of our picture of the atmosphere could improve 1,000 times over.
There's every reason to be optimistic that simply having more measurements of the atmosphere will lead to improved forecasts.
It's also possible that the GEMS themselves could be made to play an active role in cloud dynamics. In effect, cloud seeding with 1 million microscopic computers.
We could potentially use these very small devices either as cloud condensation nuclei to seed clouds the way that current weather modification is done, or potentially something even more futuristic would be to actually have the devices be active, where they could introduce some perturbation into parts of the atmosphere to actually modify the weather.
And that is what they are doing. So let me just read some excerpts from that military document. Advances in technology are beginning to bring weather phenomena more completely under control, greatly increased computing power, and miniaturized, nano-sized delivery systems will allow us to create specific perturbations in local atmospheric conditions. These perturbations allow for the immediate and persistent ability to create localized fog or stratus cloud formations. Nanotechnology will enable creation of stratus cloud formations. Just in case you don't know what stratus clouds look like. Oh, wow. Look at that. The dome that we speak of, the dome, stratus cloud. Yeah. I'm sure you have seen these clouds in your sky. How about that? Yeah. Stratus clouds. Okay. Let's see. Weather creation involves networked miniature balloons feeding and receiving data. This network of diamond-walled balloons enters the area to be changed. It affects localized temperature and vapor content. It's a system that will control the atmospheric system to the point it can be managed. The fear of global warming and increased publicity of weather-related tragedies have manipulated the sciences, have manipulated the people. But the technology of weather modification has expanded into rain or snow development, hail dissipation, and lightning dissipation? Question mark. Okay, this is the military admitting that they can create rain or snow and dissipate hail. Oh, well then why don't we see that happening? Instead, what we see are these golf ball size or baseball size hail destroying cars, roofs, and lightning. Well, we're seeing an awful lot of lightning. All right. Controlling the weather. Well, this technology, nanotechnology, will allow the military to not only control it, but create it. it'll take an additional 10 years now. Rather than steering a storm or moving fog. And in this military document, I will say that that's the language that admits they can steer storms, move fog. But here they say, rather than that, a military commander will be able to create weather with nanotechnology. The nanotechnology, these nanoballoons, enabled sensors, networks. They measure, alter, communicate. The delivery of these systems can be accomplished with current technology. In 2009, the center of this weather control system revolves around a formation of diamond nano-skinned balloons encasing a host of nano machines. These are, they're not, one is not visible to the naked eye. One is the size of 1/1000th of a human hair. So you're talking, yeah, do I want to say alien technology? You're talking a technology that not a whole lot can even understand, comprehend, but that they're capable of putting sensors, putting GPSs, they're mini computers that you can't even see. They're dust size. Okay. It is really fascinating technology, but it's in the wrong hands. So, nano machines, nano factories, here they can create these perturbations in the atmosphere. You box in a volume of airspace. The right angles that we see on satellite, also on radar, right angles will box in an airspace. Mother Nature does not work in this, geometric, right-angled, defined, lined kind of way. Man does. So the flow only needs to be stabilized and directional enough to allow for modification of temperature, pressure, and vapor content to the degree it results in cloud formations. Perturbations can be as simple as heating or cooling a large area of the atmosphere. It's as simple as that. To change, to alter, to modify the weather. All you have to do is create a perturbation by heating or cooling our atmosphere. Microwaves can heat our atmosphere. The perturbation does not need to be as specific as building a cloud system and may be hundreds of miles away from the area of interest, the area to be targeted with whatever weather they want. So, making a high or low pressure area can be as simple as heating or cooling a massive column of air with diamond balloons. So when we hear these meteorologists talking about, a low pressure and a high pressure and colliding pressures and the air masses and going up and south and warming up the north, and it's all not Mother Nature. This is controlled by man. Altitude of these balloons controlled through the buoyancy of the balloon through a combination of electrolysis of water and nanopumps, removing molecular water from within the balloon. The walls of the balloon can have nano fans providing additional thrust. So when we see, and I have posted video, satellite images of, whoa, a cloud taking off really fast. Thrust. Utilization of Earth's magnetic field or artificial electromagnetic frequencies and the charge of the skin of the balloon will aid in formation, keeping with other balloons. Nano network controllers within each balloon will maintain contact with neighboring balloons. They literally communicate with one another. These networking balloons, similar to nanoswarms. Nanoswarms. You've seen, I'm sure, video of our military dumping nanoswarms from a plane. Cargo plane. Tiny, 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 tiny nanobots in the atmosphere. And how they communicate with one another. This swarm of nanobots communicating. You know, there's a real problem, though. There's a lot of people who are a little bit afraid of this technology. Self-replicating nanobots could destroy all life on Earth. Self-replicating tiny robots could completely consume all life on Earth and lead to the end of the planet. You can think of them as the technological equivalent of bacteria and viruses. Eric Drexler, an engineer who is considered one of the pioneers of nanotechnology, warned in his book, Engines of Creation, way back in 1986. Imagine such a replicator floating in a bottle of chemicals, making copies of itself. The first replicator assembles a copy in 1,000 seconds. The two replicators then build two more in the next 1,000 seconds. The 4 build another 4. The 8 build another 8. At the end of 10 hours, there are not 36 new replicators, but over 68 billion. And I do have to wonder about what I am seeing. Now, this is just a small portion of the atmosphere. But these things are all over the world. They talk about nanofactories, and yes, it does take an awful lot to understand enough to communicate what I'm communicating to you now, and there's so much, nanofactories. These nano balloons, self-replicating, creating more nano balloons, and suddenly you have, not a billion, not a trillion, quadrillion up there in our atmosphere. In less than a day, they would weigh a ton. In less than 2 days, they would outweigh the Earth. In another 4 hours, they would exceed the mass of the sun and all the planets combined if the bottle of chemicals hadn't run dry long before. He goes on to warn that they could begin destroying and replacing all biological life on Earth, leading to the end of humanity in what is known as the gray goo scenario, which is this ecophagy, the literal consumption of ecosystems. But here, early assembler-based replicators could beat the most advanced modern organisms. Plants with leaves, no more efficient than today's solar cells, could outcompete real plants, crowding the biosphere with an inedible foliage. A tough, omnivorous bacteria could outcompete real bacteria that could spread like blowing pollen. Pollen, replicate swiftly, and reduce the biosphere to dust in a matter of days. Ow. Okay, and Chris Phoenix, Director of Research of the Center for Responsible Nanotechnology, says that there are other things to worry about with nanotechnology. Artificial intelligence, runaway replication would only be the product of a deliberate and difficult engineering process, not an accident. Well, you know, considering the condition of humanity, considering the scientists that, well, we know a lot of them who are literally mad, crazy, and willing to do anything, well, who cares about the consequences? Could I see this happening? Yeah, I could, actually. Will it happen? I don't know. Maybe they've put in some preventative measures to avoid that. That would be nice, huh? Okay, let me just get back to nanoballoons. So, nanoswarms, nanoballoons, and here, you can read, you know, how it works. It's modeled after insects, ants. Ants is a network architecture, applicable to future nano factories. Ants, addressable, reconfigurable technology. The core of ART is the addressable, reconfigurable technology. The core of ART is a networked swarm of nanomachines capable of configuring themselves for a variety of tasks, individual methods of atmospheric modification at the molecular level. That's what these nanomachines are doing. They have a combination of nanopumps working at the molecular level that can transport water between layers in the atmosphere. Nanofactories can conduct electrolysis on water, molecularly building nuclei of drops or ice crystals, or reducing water vapor. Cooling and vapor content, which will have the effect of cooling the atmosphere, dropping the temperature, perhaps making it feel like ice. It will have an effect on localized pressure. Small inputs can develop large and self-sustaining events. Larger, more temperature-based control balloons will be the center of the high and low pressure perturbations. Will nanotechnology be developed to the level of atmospheric control by 2030? Yeah. They got it going. So, I want you to listen to Mr. Weather Machine. Mr. Weather Machine. I'm not sure I'm going to play the whole thing. The Weather Machine, nano-enabled climate control for the Earth. This is John Storrs Hall, who created the weather machine.
Okay, I'm speaking with a futurist hat on here. I don't want to imply that I've done a major deep engineering analysis of what I'm about to talk about, but I've done enough back-of-the-envelope calculations that as a futurist, I'm fairly sure that something like this is within our next few decades. And so the talk is going to be in three parts. First, I'm going to try and convince you that a certain kind of machine that I'll describe is going to be possible, especially given the capabilities of molecular manufacturing that we just heard about. The second part is going to try to convince you that given that such a machine is possible, that it is very likely to be built. And then the third part is I'm going to try and talk about what the implications of that are for things like global catastrophic risk and a few other things. Okay, so here's the machine. You build a little balloon, and my guess is that the balloon needs to be somewhere between 1 millimeter and 1 centimeter in size. But it has a very thin shell of diamond, maybe just a nanometer thick, and it's round, and it has inside it an equatorial plane that is a mirror. And the whole business, if you squished it flat, you'd only have a few nanometers thick of material, which turns out to be fairly important, and why it's although you could build such a balloon out of materials that we build balloons out of now, it wouldn't be economical for what I'm going to use it for. Okay, so given that we can build these balloons so that the total amount of material in a balloon is actually very, very small, you inflate them with hydrogen in such a way that they will stabilize about 20 miles up in the stratosphere. Okay? So you have these little bitty balloons, and inside of them they have a mirror, and they also have a tiny little control unit and just barely enough power or fans or other actuators to be able to tilt themselves to a preferred orientation. Okay? Now you make enough of them to cover the entire globe. All right? Now, this is why the nanotechnology makes a big difference, because if they're as thick as I described them, you only need about 10 million tons of material to do that. And to compare that with stuff that we're used to, that's about the same amount of material used to make 100 miles of freeway. This is nothing that our technology can't handle, assuming that you can actually turn it into a high-tech gadget of the kind I described. Because so you have a balloon, and it's just a balloon, and it floats up there 20 miles, and they all have a little GPS and receiver, and they can just turn themselves, and that's all there is to it. And that's the machine. Okay, well, what can you do with a machine like this? Well, the machine is essentially a programmable greenhouse gas. Okay? If you set the mirrors facing the sun, it reflects all the sunlight back. If you set them sideways, it allows the sunlight to come through. And similarly for the long-wave radiation coming out of the backside of the Earth at night. Okay. Now, this machine, which I call the weather machine, has a radiative forcing capability. Now, for comparison, the radiative forcing capability of CO2, as generally mentioned in the global warming theories, is about 1 watt per square meter. Okay, this machine essentially has a kilowatt per square meter of radiative forcing capability. All right, it completely trumps any natural influence of that kind that's out there or that we can imagine. Okay, so if you're worried about we're all going to die because of global warming, or if you're one of the people who is all worried about we're all about to fall into an ice age, we can fix that. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. The second version of this machine is actually even cooler. The first version is essentially like a sort of a rod logic existence proof of something that looks buildable with molecular manufacturing and will do the job. Okay, but version 2 is you have the same balloon, but inside of it you have a kind of an aerogel that is switchable antenna units with crosslinks. And so you can tune the thing to be an absorber or transmitter of radiation in any desired frequency and in any desired direction. And if you're really good, with any desired phase. Okay, and so once you get that, essentially you've turned this layer in the stratosphere into an enormous hologram. And of course the astronomers really hate number one because they screw up the vision, the viewing, and all this sort of stuff. But they love number two because it turns the entire Earth into a telescope with the aperture of 8,000 miles. All right. And of course, you can take that light and change it into any other wavelength you want, and send it off in any other direction you want. So you can control not only the climate as a single parameter, but you can probably get close to controlling local weather. Okay, and we don't come close to knowing enough about the whole weather system to be able to say exactly what you could and couldn't do. But I'm fairly sure that you could do things like make Canada as warm as California, or vice versa. You could cool the tropics. You could warm up the polar regions if you wanted to. If you wanted to do solar power, for example, you could build an array of photovoltaics out in the desert somewhere, maybe. And you could take the area of about 1,000 square kilometers above it and set the little mirrors in the first version, or charge up your antennas in the second, to focus the sunlight down onto your area. So instead of having to have 1,000 square kilometers of solar collectors, you have one. And you've just concentrated all that sunlight on it, and it's pretty much free because you've already built the thing to control the weather. And what's more, you haven't changed the energy balance any, because you're shading all the area that is otherwise under the 1,000 square kilometers. That gives you, in broad daylight, an energy flux that's approximately the same as 1,000 nuclear reactors of typical size. Of course, you have to cool the collectors fairly vigorously because they're not 100% efficient. But we can do that. Okay, so anyway, that's the machine. We have this gadget that can intercept the sunlight and do cute things with it. Okay, part two. Why do I think that it's very likely to be built, given that I think that it can be built? First thing is global catastrophic risk. There's a lot of people that are worried about things like global warming. There's other people that are worried about ice ages. There are people who are worried about asteroids. If you take the asteroid Apophis that was just spoken of earlier, you remember that how this is going to work is that in 2029, it's going to come within the orbit of the moon, passing the Earth, and that's going to be sort of like a butterfly effect incident where it's fairly difficult to predict exactly what's going to happen to it after that close encounter. Okay, once it gets past that, we'll know. But actually, our computers are good enough that once it gets close, we'll be able to know pretty well. Well, in 2029, if this happens to be built by then, which is, who knows. But if it does happen to be built by then, even the simple mirror version, okay, what we can do is, as it comes tumbling past, we can focus the entire Earth's worth of sunlight on it and give it a kick, all right? And this is probably a lot more appropriate in the case of Apophis than many other asteroids, because it's going to be so close, and a little tiny kick will have a huge result in 36 when it comes back and might actually be hitting. But a fairly minor kick in 29, just basically by hitting it with enough light to blow out some material, will probably be enough, if it was going to be in that resonance keyhole, to get it out. Okay, so that's one thing you could do with it. Another catastrophic risk you could avert. The second reason is that it's going to be extremely valuable. If you read the IPCC numbers on how much global warming is going to cost, what they actually estimate is that over the rest of the century, it's going to be about 3% of the global GDP. Well, if you could actually control the climate and tailor it and make lots of other places on the earth, like northern Canada and Russia and so forth, as valuable land as California is, the effect on the global GDP would be enormous, and it would, instead of being minus 3%, it might be plus 300%. Okay, so there's a huge amount of value to being able to control the weather. And so this is something people have always wanted to do, and something that, therefore, they probably will do. Third, remember the power plant. What if it's not a power plant underneath this 1,000 square kilometers of mirrors, but the enemy ship, or some city you didn't like, or something like that? Another way of specifying the amount of energy that would get pumped into that area is the effect of exploding a 1 kiloton atom bomb every second for as long as you want it. Okay, you could stir it around and so forth, and you could likewise focus the light on other things. It doesn't really matter, though, whether you're zapping things with your focus effect. If you can control the weather, you're pretty much in charge. Okay, anybody that doesn't like you and starts rattling their sabers, has 20 years of no summer, no growing season. It's a military engine second to none to be able to control the Earth's weather. And for that reason alone, I think that given the technological capability of doing it, it will be done. Okay, well, part 3. This is actually the part I don't really know too well, which is the implications. Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, if you're a government and you want to start doing this, I mean, I cannot see the U.S. government believing that this is possible and not doing it. I mean, it's not in the nature of the beast, right? In fact, I can't see several other governments also not being able to do it and not doing it. If you're a smaller government that doesn't have enough conventional forces to defend yourself while this is being put up, I'm guessing that approximately 5% of it is all you would need to have a setting that was a dead man switch, where if they came and blew you up and you quit sending out the control signals, all of the low balloons went into snowball Earth mode, and it would be a doomsday device. So once somebody gets 5% of one built, you're stuck listening to them. Now, among other things, you can start building your own. And in fact, it seems reasonable to imagine that by later in the century, there are going to be several competing clouds of these things around. And hopefully they won't actually wind up physically competing with each other. But the people that are in charge of them will all sort of come to some negotiation. And unfortunately, it means that's going to be all the more reason for somebody to want to get in the game. Okay, you have 3 billion balloons up, and I have 7 billion, and this guy over there has 2 billion, and so that means we get that many votes in the weather control world government. But that's actually, I should just really throw it open to questions, because I can't come close to seeing all the implications that this will have. But I'm fairly sure, A, that it's possible, and B, that it will be done.
In operational defenses through weather control in 2030. Weather machine. Weather machine. It is being done, and one could only hope that they know what they're doing. Now, this is a transcript of that talk, The Weather Machine, on the Foresight Institute, The Weather Machine. I just want to reiterate just a little bit of what he said. Now make enough of them to cover the entire globe. You'll need 5 quintillion of them. It would completely trump any natural or anthropogenic climatic forcing and allow us to set Earth's climate to whatever we want it to be. Do we get a vote on that? No. You know, this here, the Kardashev Type 1 civilization, sorry. If you want to do some research, there are videos where people are talking about this Kardashev Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, 4, 5, these civilizations. The Type 1 civilization is one that controls all energy available on a single planet. A weather machine would do that. Now, did he? I don't remember him saying that in his talk, but it's in the transcript. We can now tune the aerostat to be an absorber or transmitter of radiation in any desired frequency, in any desired direction. Once we have that, the weather machine essentially becomes an enormous directional video screen, or with phase control, hologram. Hologram in the sky. Whoever can control the weather on Earth is pretty much in charge. If you're a smaller government without enough conventional forces to defend yourself, while your weather machine is being built, 5% is all you need. Once somebody gets 5%, you're stuck listening to them. Competing clouds. Could we see warring clouds? Yeah. Which is really quite, kind of, we're now living the unimaginable. But if you have 3 quintillion balloons up, and I have 1 quintillion, and this guy over there has 2 quintillion, which means we get that many votes in the weather control world government. Wow. All right. Nanotechnology for climate control and enabling a Kardashev Type 1 and 2 civilization. And I think that this is what they're trying to achieve, actually. So the Kardashev Type 1, you would be able to use all of the solar power hitting the Earth. Type 1 civilization is able to harness all of the power available on a single planet. Think about that. And then the electricity, one would think it would be free, but no, it's not going to be free. The electricity has to be transmitted and distributed to where it needs to be used, a super grid, which could be wireless. This, I think, is what they are going for. Now, utility companies like PG&E. 2 billion of those weather systems, the weather balloons, turns humanity into a Kardashev Type 2 civilization. A Type 2 civilization is able to harness all of the power available from a single star, all of the power available from the sun. 40,000 trillion tons of nanotechnology produced material, mostly nanometer thick shells of millimeter to centimeter size filled with aerogel and some electronics, enables a Type 2 civilization. A civilization that controls thousands, Type 1, to 1 trillion times Type 2, more power than our current civilization, would have a lot of power for good or for destruction. And that's, I was reading this article, Molecular Manufacturing, Too Dangerous to Allow. One common argument against pursuing a molecular assembler or nanofactory design effort is that the end results are too dangerous. According to this argument, any research into molecular manufacturing should be blocked because this technology might be used to build systems that could cause extraordinary damage. This is the self-replicating nanorobots, capable of functioning autonomously in the natural environment, which could quickly convert that natural environment into replicas of themselves on a global basis. Such self-replicating systems, if not countered, could make the Earth largely uninhabitable. Now, when I was doing a little bit of research on this Kardashev, these Type 1, Type 2 civilizations, energy doesn't disappear. It doesn't disappear. So, what I was hearing was that harnessing all of that power, all of that energy, you would have to have somebody very responsible in distributing that energy. But it could end up where all of that energy darkens areas of our planet for very long periods of time. So there's a lot of implications, and I frankly think that he just didn't want to go on with these implications. That's why he stopped, just to take questions. Okay, so, and there are, there's an awful lot of information. Electrostatically driven nanoballoon actuators, movers, think of mover, employing a nano electromechanical manipulator, show that a collapsed carbon nanotube can be reinflated by electrically charging the nanotube, thus realizing an electrostatically driven nanoballoon actuator. We find that the tube actuator can be reliably cycled with only modest control voltage, few volts, with no apparent wear or fatigue. So we know that they use these electromagnetic frequencies. Just hit it with a few volts of electricity and it recharges. The nanoballoon recharges. Using light, external magnetic field, and electrostatic forces to control or actuate nanomaterials and nanostructures. These works, for instance, indicate the potential use of light, electric, or magnetic field as driving forces to control nano objects. Besides, energetic charged particles can also be a possible source of maneuvering the nanostructures. So this is real time. This is real time, and here we have North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota. All right, look at what we see here. The twirling about like a hurricane. Okay. It's much better during the day, harder to get the full scale of how many nanoballoons are operating. All of the blue, that's your nanoballoons. And it's all over, my God. South America, I've seen days where it's just been covered in cloud. So we still have, this cloud system here. Well, they can hold it here. And they can create more and more cloud. So, but what they're doing to the jet stream, what they're doing to these air masses, I mean, it's really, when I look at this, I go, okay, anything, they don't care about these consequences, the possible consequences. And these, the consequences are, well, catastrophic, to say the least. So here's your nano balloon, nano factory, your these are not clouds. They're all over. All over. And, well, I know that a lot of people are, hey, yay, this is great. I just want my natural world back. So this was on the 19th. And yes, these stratus cloud formations were bringing an awful lot of rain to Washington, Oregon. But I have been seeing very bizarre happenings on these sites now. And seeing them just whip around air masses. This is the Gulf of Mexico. No, you can see the air mass. You can see one air. This is stagnant right here. This air mass is being pushed east. All of these are nanoballoons. All of them. Creating cloud. Now, we all know that Mother Nature does not work in, little squares. This is nanotechnology operating. But as you can see, disappearing. You have air masses that seem to be going in every which way. West, east. You see the microwaves right here. This is Mexico. All right, now I want to take you to one more. Okay, watch. This is Mexico. This is on the 27th. And here we have, again, a system being created where clouds are coming in from the Pacific into Mexico, on up in throughout the United States, into Canada now. I want you to watch what's happening right here. This is stagnant. This is literally still while an air mass is going over it. Right here, you have a line of cloud making more cloud. Look at these right angled, these right angles right here. Boxing in areas of the atmosphere. So, I know that this is going on. It's a long video. I like to know how things work. I know that there are a few of you who like to know how things work, but look at all of the playing around with our atmosphere, creating cloud, shifting air masses. In no way can this be. This ain't Mother Nature. All of the microwaves, the creation of cloud. So for those who leave comments saying that I'm a disinformation agent because I'm not mentioning Weather War 101's work, you know, do you know how many times I have mentioned his work, which was really brilliant? But there's a new technology in town, knocking out old technology. And what you are looking at, this is all being created by something that you cannot see with your naked eye. Look at these air masses. So you have this air mass going west, and then you have another one on top of it going east, and look at the amount. Talk about, you know, taking over an ecosystem. You know, okay. There are days I look at the United States and I think, all right, is there any land down there? You know, because you just see cloud. But look at the formation right there. Right up here. That's a nice right-angled boxing in an area of the atmosphere. Square clouds. No. Brazil. It is all over. All over. Another right angle. Cloud construction. Now you see air masses being moved down south and then east into Brazil. And you see this being held pretty much steady. Well, I guess they're waiting for their orders. We may see the planet covered in cloud. Really? Look at this going down south and west. And I don't think that you need to be a scientist or an engineer or a rocket scientist. You just know that playing around with the natural processes of Earth is not a good idea. It's really not a good idea. To changing the frequencies, the Schumann resonance of Earth, and how life itself would resonate with that frequency, 7.83, and that's shot to hell. So the ripple effect is that it's not just humans that have to suffer the consequences, but it's all life. So, quintillion. If it's not a quintillion, then they're getting pretty darn close to that number. Yeah, okay. Take a look at this. Whew. All right, a thrust. Wow, now that's pretty intense. This cloud just coming right on in, from California to Mexico. What is that? Come on. God, I wish I had an editing program. I'm so frustrated because I would put up a video of all of the very strange things that I have been seeing. Nanoballoons. Got an order to make some cloud here. But as you can see, they're moving these air masses about wherever. I mean, they're colliding, they're being held steady, they're coming down, and the velocity of these air masses are being, all different speeds. Look at this, that's just hanging there, and oh, well, we're just going to get rid of you. Look at this. What is that? Well, it's a blockade, and it's a very, strange occurrence. You have these nanoballoons parked outside on the Pacific. You have them in the Atlantic. And this is not just around, North America, as you saw, South America, but it's all over the planet. So all of these lines right here, these are nanoballoons. All of the lines. Communicating, coming together. What exactly their function is, I don't know. You don't need to know every detail, and I would have to know what the commander wanted from the commands. This is a line of nanoballoons all over. Here we have an air mass coming in an easterly direction and one going north. So let me just show you. Oh, one more. How about the square? Yes. Nanosquare cloud in the Pacific. All right, this is the 17th. And the nano technology, what am I doing? So this is why I need an editing program, because I could edit out all of the crap. Hang on. A nano balloon line creating cloud. You did see that, right? Right up here. And this is Northern California. Your stratus cloud formations up in Oregon, creating it in Northern California. You have a line right over here. So when we see those lines of precipitation on radar, look at this, my God. Really? You're going to claim that that is natural? No, it's, my God, spinning around like, well, a whirlwind. You can see the extremely low frequencies on the top of this storm system, which is moving at a thrusty pace, but it seems to be once again split, and they are keeping this, holding it over this portion of the United States, and you still have that tail. This is the nano balloons. These are the nano balloons right here. They all came together. They make a little tail. Here are some more nano balloons at work here in the Atlantic off the coast of South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Yeah, your weather has been completely and utterly taken over. Now look at this. Okay. You know, you're not going to hear the truth from mainstream media meteorologists, but if you have watched or, you know, looked at radar for a while over the recent years, you will see the drastic differences. And even this coming into Southern California down here, I mean, it's literally just being swung in the lower portion of the storm. Here you have this being held in place, and it just, well, evaporates. None of this even looks remotely similar to what radar, the weather, precipitation, storm systems, what it looked like not too long ago. Here's your square. A square of gray cloud being made in the Pacific. All of what you see down here, nanoballoons. You can see the frequencies in this block of gray cloud. Unbelievable. Look at this. Look at this. If you go to these sites, which I will link to below, you will see amazing things happening. But no, we never had this amount of, well, cloud in all over the planet, but here we have a square, and around nano balloon. But look at all of this cloud. Look at, holding the air mass stagnant while they're pushing another air mass to the east, and wow. Yeah. That's a lot of nanotechnology in our atmosphere. And were you asked if it was okay if they could do this? Because this atmosphere, it's also your atmosphere. You see the line of nano balloons that are working together. So this is on the 17th. But what I think is probably more dangerous is the manipulation of the jet stream and the directing these air masses wherever they so choose. This was also on the 17th at 12:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can see the air masses going in two different directions, and this is the stratus cloud formation. They are, look at, you've got this coming down north, south, this going up north. You have your nano balloon line literally creating cloud here in the Atlantic. Right here. And a whole lot of frequencies also being used. Look at the colliding air masses down here in the Gulf. Look at this line of cloud. Those are nanoballoons shooting off cloud. So unbelievably irresponsible, dangerous. God, I need an editing program because I want you to see that I have so many captures, and I want you to see them. But I can't even, I have to guess where they are when I take captures. I can't, there's no time stamps. This is the nano balloons that have come together. Creating cloud. We're covered in these sheets of thick cloud formation. And can you imagine what the weather would be like if man wasn't controlling it? Can you imagine what life would be if man wasn't controlling it? Look at all of the microwaves that may be evaporating the cloud. But you'll see these, you know, just parked somewhere. These huge, smooth cloud. They don't go anywhere. They're just parked. And then you see, it's like these nanoballoons are shooting out cloud. This is not Mother Nature. What? No, sorry, not at all. Not at all. Look at this thick cloud that's just hanging out there. But you will also see these lines. They actually take the form of like a boundary and don't let any cloud pass that boundary. So we've got, look at these air masses going all over the place. Look at this right angle right up here, creating, you know, a blockade so that all of this cloud will just go towards you guys in Europe. None of it is real. None of it. All manufactured by the crazy lunatics. Look at this perfect line right here. All right, guys. Yeah, there's a lot I want you to see. So this is at 12:32 Eastern Standard Time. So it's like 9:32 in the morning, California. They're just pushing in cloud for you. All right. For all of those who are still here, still with me, I wish we were all in the same place so we could talk about this stuff and because if you're still with me, it means that you're interested in this as well. There's nothing that we can do. You know, they have filled the atmosphere with these nanoballoons that are... I hope they have control over this, because it's kind of looking like it's madness in the atmosphere. So here's that cloud system. You know, they just continue to make these clouds that are 27th cloud making. All right. We're subject to lunatics. And that makes life very challenging. When the lunatics are in control, life is very challenging. Look at this. Yeah, nanotechnology has already been rolled out, operating. Thanks for all of your support, and thank you for hanging in with me. I really do appreciate it. I'll just leave you with this. The Foresight Institute, Nanotech, and Climate Change. Well, first we've got to decide what the Earth's climate ought to be. Decide how much CO2 we want in the atmosphere. And if we want it colder, we either remove some water from the air or construct a negative GHG using nanotech. That is a molecule or nanoballoon which reflects near infrared and is transparent to thermal infrared and administer whatever amount is necessary. If all else fails, build a weather machine. Be careful though. A weather machine run by the same people who ran our financial system recently could be a very dangerous toy. Be safe, everyone. All links are below.